Now we'll move on to the support tree, and as we do, we'll jump up to one of my Rio Bone Spears. This one. Okay, so we here have got Steadfast. Increases max HP by 810, and then we've got Pinpoint Accuracy, increases accuracy by 10. Both really, really good and really great options for Clan Boss, but with specifics. So if you need accuracy, 100% pinpoint accuracy, plus 10, happy days, move on. Now as for Steadfast, the HP is not really actually what we care about. 810, it's alright, it's nothing great, it's nothing amazing, it's pretty much equal to the 75 attack or defense that you'll be getting. But what Steadfast brings is that if two champions are equal, or even one is slightly greater of taking the stun hit in Clan Boss, if you put Steadfast on the champion that is slightly greater to another champion who's similarly equal, Steadfast will make the Clan Boss attack the one that does not have it on. I hope I phrased that correctly. If not, please comment below and I'll try and clarify it a bit better. But Steadfast is amazing for stun target controlling. Say for example, I have a Rio Bone Spear and a Lydia the Death Siren in my team. My Rio Bone Spear is in the Guardian set, and then my Lydia the Death Siren is not. So I want my Lydia the Death Siren to take the stun hit, but say my Rio Bone Spear is actually higher in my position order. I can put Steadfast on my Rio, and that will make Clan Boss do his stun hit on Lydia, which means that Rio's Guardian set to protect Lydia will come into play a little bit. And that's where Steadfast can be really helpful, because you can have a champion, with a aura increase, but you also don't want them to take the stun hit, so that's when you can use Steadfast again. So say for example, if I had a Farrakhan the Fat and a Helicath on the same team, I could have Helicath in the lead position with Steadfast, so that way I get the increased defense aura, and then when it comes to the stun hit, Farrakhan the Fat will take the stun hit because he does not have Steadfast on. So it's a really good one to use, but not so much for the HP, but for stun targeting in Clan Boss. And it can become quite tricky with stun targeting, so it becomes a really nice little cheat just to make things a lot easier. Now, in the second row, we've got Lay on Hands, increases the value of heals the champion casts by 5%. We've got Shield Breaker, increases the value of shield buffs this champion casts. We've got Exalt in Death. This heals this champion by 10% of their max HP the first time an enemy is killed in each round. And lastly, Charged Focus, increases accuracy by 20 when this champion has no skills on cooldown. Okay, so we'll run through these from left to right. Lay on Hands. It's not one that is often used in Clan Boss, but if you have a healer, a healing champion, I did use a Rio Bone Spear with this here. Not this specific one, because as you can see, I did not pick up War Master, so this Rio Bone Spear is not for Clan Boss. But the increased value of heals, this champion casts by 5%. It's a small increase, but it can be quite useful, especially if you're dealing with a team that needs heals from a specific champion. So it can be useful, but it is very niche, I think is the right word. Now as for Shield Breaker, exact same scenario. It can be useful, again very niche, but really good for any sort of shield team or something like that where you bring in shields and you want them to be increased. The beautiful thing about Shield Breaker is that if you don't want to pick up Steadfast, you can still pick up Pinpoint Accuracy and also grab Shield Breaker. So that there is quite nice indeed. And then as for Exalt in Death, this here is completely useless in Clan Boss. Don't worry about it, just delete it from the possibilities. And lastly, Charged Focus. This one here I quite like. So it increases accuracy by 20 when this champion has no skills on cooldown. This is fantastic because a lot of the ability that you'll be using will be ones that are your placing debuffs. So this here can be really good to get that extra 20 accuracy, but if your champion has a lot of active skills and nothing is ever off cooldown, it becomes sort of pointless. But again, really good. And the other thing is that 20 accuracy does not show up in your champion's stats. So if you build a champion with say 210 accuracy, they have two abilities. Say you've got a Bad Alcazar. So Bad Alcazar on his A2 places poisons. But say you only build him with 205 or 210 accuracy, and you might be thinking, it's not enough, I need to try and get more into my gear. Well, no, because this here will give you plus 20 accuracy when you go to use the A2, taking you to that 230, which is about what you need to guarantee it in a sense. Of course, there's always that 3% resist, but we won't get into that. So it can be very good, and just take into account that it doesn't show up on your champion stats, so it's a hidden plus 20 accuracy. Really nice to have. Alright, now down to the third one. Increases the amount of healing and the value of shields placed by this champion if the target ally has low HP. And we've got a rapid response. Has a 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10% when a buff cast by this champion is removed or expires. Then we've got Swarm Smiter. Increases accuracy by 4 for each enemy alive. Stacks up to 16. And then we've got Arcane Celerity. Has a 30% chance of increasing the turn meter by 10% when a debuff cast by this champion is removed or expires. So we're going to skip the header here and look at Rapid Response and Arcane Celerity. These increase turn meter from buffs and debuffs expiring. Do not use. In a clan boss speed tune team, do not use. Even worse than the other Cycle of Revenge are these two masteries. Do not use Rapid Response, do not use Arcane Celerity, and do not use Cycle of Revenge in the defense tree. These are all must avoids at all costs. Do not use these, they will ruin your team. Now as for Healing Savior, really good for a healing champion or a shield champion, but other than that, completely useless. So really good for your Valkyrie who places a big shield, but again, your target has to be low HP. So even for a shield team, it's not the best one to really be using. But for a healer, like a Rio Bone Spear, who's going to do a massive heal after your champion's taken a fair bit of damage, that's when this here is a very useful one indeed. And then lastly, Swarm Smiter. Amazing, even better than the previous mastery in Charged Focus, because this here will give you that 16 as long as everybody's alive, and again it's also hidden. So if your Bad L has that 200 accuracy, you're getting plus 20 from your Charged Focus, and then you're also getting plus 16 from your Swarm Smiter, so now you're up to 236 and you have plenty of accuracy to do exactly what you need. The other beautiful thing about this one is that although it only goes to 16, it does, however, work on even your A1s and whenever, because it's not dependent on cooldowns. So really good. Again, doesn't show up in your champion stats. So remember when you're building your champions that you do have that extra 16 if you happen to pick up this mastery. Very good mastery indeed. Alright, let's get down to the middle one here. So we got Merciful Aid. Increases the amount of healing and the value of shield buffs placed by this champion by 15% if the target has one of those CC debuffs. Then you've got Cycle of Magic, has a 5% chance of decreasing the cooldown of a random skill by 1 at the start of every turn. Then we've got Law of Steel. Increases the base stat set bonuses of all artifact sets. Increases the base stat set by 15%. This increases multiplicative, not additive. And lastly, Evil Eye. Decreases the target's turn meter when this champion hits them with the default skill for the first time. So, as for Merciful Aid, very similar to the other areas. It's really solid if you need to use a healer, but again, it's only going to be that effective on one champion if they take a stun. Won't be helpful for Rio because she does in fact cleanse the stun. So, not a very useful one for clan boss, and generally avoid it. As for Cycle of Magic, this one here is a very good debatable one. So if you're using a champion, say a Farrakhan the Fat, who has 2 abilities that use cooldowns and his A1, and of course if you don't have him tuned to use certain abilities at certain times, this is really good. But if you have him on like a 4-to-3 ratio team and you want him to always use his ally protection, ally attack ability at certain times, that way he has a double turn, so he has a chance to get heals, etc, then you want to avoid this. But if your champions are just out there to do tons of damage, like say you're using like a poisoner in a 2-to-1 ratio team and you don't care about that champion's abilities, 100% use it. but never use it on a champion who is tuned to use their abilities at certain times. So, Rio Bone Spear, cannot use it on her. Sepulchre Sentinel, you cannot use it on her. Helicath, you cannot use it on him, etc, etc, etc. Where, say, if you're running an Acrisia or a Dracomorph or somebody like that, you can 100% use it on them. So it's a very one that you've got to be very careful with on which champions you put it on. But again, if you just have the general rule of avoiding it, it's fine, because it's only a 5% chance. So over the course of a clan boss fight, it's not going to come to effect that much, and it's only by one turn at the start of every turn, chance of a random skill. So it's doesn't bring a whole lot of benefit. It brings a little bit, but not a whole lot, but it does bring a fair bit of risk. So a general rule of thumb is people usually avoid it. I do happen to run it on certain teams, but again, it's not necessarily recommended or always needed. So it's up to your discretion, but again, many just tend to avoid it to not make any mistakes. But masteries are so subjective, there's no one rule for all. And I'll quickly go through some of my champions. Now, a lot of my champions are not necessarily built in clan boss teams at the moment, so the masteries might not make sense. So I'll just quickly run through a couple. So of course, Razin Scarhide has a 3-hitter in his A1, so I'm picking up Giant Slayer. And I'm picking up extra accuracy and the chance to extend the debuffs, and I'm picking up the damage as much as I can in the offensive tree. Pretty standard. And you'll see that as far as the masteries go in all my clan boss champions, it is all very similar. Now, as for example, my Acrisia, who I use in other areas other than clan boss, but I've gone down and picked up Warmaster for her. Even though she's a max HP champion, the extra Warmaster proc will bring me a lot more damage than the Flawless Execution. And then of course I'm picking up Cycle of Magic because I can reset those abilities and it doesn't affect me whatsoever. Getting an extra chance because she has defense down on her A1, and of course the extension chance, so she could possibly have it for 3 turns. So that way she's just bringing in as much as she can. As you can see, hug in the left side, hug in the right and middle side, pretty standard as you'll go through my champions and you'll see their sort of builds. My Venus, also hug in the left side, hug on the right side. It's all pretty well simple and all very similar, but of course every champion is slightly specific. My Helicath, same story, bang and bang. I've went of course to pick up the shield rather than the accuracy. Again, this Helicath has 2 abilities, active abilities with his shield and his block damage, so that increase accuracy by 20 when the no champion has no skills on cooldown is not one that's going to be really affected, and he's the only place to debuff on his A1 anyway, so that's a mastery that is pointless for him. However, the shield is fantastic for him, so that's why I took a slightly alternate path there. Then we've got now, so this here is my Geomancer I've been using for clan boss videos and stuff. So you'll see that I've avoided things like Cycle of Magic, where my Geomancer that I do not use, the one that I use specifically for Hydra, I've picked up Cycle of Magic, because I can use that decrease the cooldown of a random skill by 1. That becomes quite handy. So that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching this far. Hope it was informative. Please do comment below, like the video, whatever you want to do there. I really like to see comments. I try to reply to every single one. Again, thanks for watching it. Yeah, hope it helps and all of that. Catch you later.